Really, the goal now is to get back to what the scenario last night was trying to highlight, and Minette really did a great job at highlighting this morning, which is, we have these broad values, we have these different goals that we're trying to reach, and then there's what actually happens in schools. And then there are the messages that we send to students, to parents, to other community members, to other stakeholders, whether it's explicitly or implicitly, that either reinforce or sometimes challenge or send mixed messages about the goals and values that we have. So what we want to try to do now as a group is to think about, we have these broad goals, and whether those goals are particular to your school or to a different school, we have different goals that are part of the Jewish education field. And what we want to think about is, how are those goals actually manifested in the things that happen within our school communities? And we know that our school communities doesn't necessarily have to mean just within the four walls of our school. Right? It could be the conversation that you have in the supermarket with a parent as an administrator, or it could be two parents talking to each other. But we want to try to capture what are those different moments, what are the different ways in which those values can be reflected. So what I'm going to ask after I divide up the different groups is, each group is going to take one of the different categories that we came up with and think together, and maybe one person can make a list of what are the different ways in which those values can be reinforced, the different contexts, the different specific actions, different messages, explicit or implicit, that could reinforce those values, and what are some things that might happen in our school that could potentially detract from achieving that goal. Right? So let's take one example. For example, if our goal was Jewish literacy and lifelong learning, so what might be an example of something that could help enhance that goal or drive towards that goal, something that we would have in a school? What might be a policy or a structure or a particular activity? Great. Ivrit b'Ivrit might help that. Right? What might be something that would challenge that goal?
Ivrit b'Ivrit.
Good. Exactly. Ivrit b'Ivrit, right? Also challenge that goal, and you could discuss and think about that, right? Or even just more basically, right, offering certain types of classes. Right?
Programs that take away from class time.
Or the flip side, taking away from class time. Or the flip side, right, requiring students to take classes and not giving them choices. Right? So on the one hand, we might have certain literacy that we want them to have. On the other hand, if the literacy is about lifelong learning and we want them to continue to have that, maybe they're going to buy in much more if they're opting to take it instead of being required to do so. So those are the types of things that we want you to think about. So let me just count off. I can't do just, I'll count off name tags. And just remember your number. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's keep it 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, you're in. 2, great. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1, 2, 3, and I guess I'll be 4. So that worked out nicely. Okay, so anyone who is a 1, so I guess the people who I chose first will have the people we went to first will have the opportunity to choose which topic their group will explore. So Dr. Novick, you can lead group 1 and choose one of the papers that are out there to focus on, and maybe head in that direction. Happy to clarify. Any questions about what you're focusing on? Let's say if your mission of your Jewish day school is to make sure that students find personal relevance, meaning in their Jewish identity, that they play an active role. So what are things that would happen in the context of your school or school community that would promote that? What are different policies that you might have in the school? What are different courses you might offer? Different types of assessment you might give, different ways in which you would communicate with students or with parents that would achieve that, and what are things on the flip side that might send mixed messages or different messages to kids that this is not important or that would contradict the goal.
Okay, great.
Is that clear?
Can I ask you to read it one more time as the goal? For some reason, I'm having a little hard time getting my head around this. I'm sure I'll get there. But like,
You can separate out. I put a bunch of things together. You could focus on one whatever aspect makes the most sense.
Okay, so if our school has the active, if one of our school's primary values is to place students at the center of their own learning, because we want them to own their own Jewish identity, own their own, we want their Jewish education to be personally meaningful and relevant. So what practices might you put in place to support that? And where might we undermine that inadvertently?
It's really what you were talking about, the love of learning and that being able to be continuous. So all the students earlier on, we're putting them in the driver's seat. That this should be your goal too. Let us help you articulate this as a goal and make sure that you'll be able to leave our institution, our school, with the aspirations and with the skills to be able to continue this out.
I think my only, and I'm going to let go of it because it really doesn't matter that much, but that first piece to me feels like a thing you do, not a goal. Do you know what I mean? Putting students in the center to me feels like that's what
I think you can take that out and read the rest of the statement. Yes, goal is the second part.
Goal is the strategy to get to ultimately.
And we're supposed to be talking about some of the tactics.
Actually, so that might be one of the practices that we put in place are programs that actively place students at the center of the programming. So I'm just going to suggest that, that if our value is that Jewish learning, we want Jewish learning to be personally relevant and meaningful in the lives of the students, that giving them agency over their own learning should be one of the things that we do. And that would be, and so we might want to think, how might we do that? So, any ideas?
The school that I'm the head of is K-8, and that's very much the goal of our school is a community-based school, so I feel like it feels I don't know, maybe it's a judgment, but I feel like in a community school, where you don't necessarily have buy-in and there's not as much of a shared sense of like, oh, the goal is to go to the synagogue and marry a Jew. Like, that's not actually what people think when they choose to go there. I feel like this becomes so essential, and it's put us in the driver's seat to create these experiences of how do you have different tefillah opportunities, right, for kids to be choosing. So I have some kids who want to go to a traditional minyan, and I have kids who go to meditation, and I have.
What age are you starting?
And well, we're just at K-8, so middle school, so in grades 5 through 8. And also to make sure we're doing really experiential learning. So we have a very strong service learning component. So every grade is matched to an organization in the community. And I think giving kids, project-based learning and choice within that has been really essential in our school for engagement from the kids, and also I think it's something that makes parents feel very safe about choosing a Jewish day school.
So I have a question. So I think that it's very true. Giving students choice is clearly a way to engage them, giving them opportunities to engage in real-world learning. It sounds like a piece of it. Are there any pieces that conflict with that within your school? Are there practices that you would say, if we, like this, although we say that we want students to have choice, these are areas where they don't have choice that we need to rethink?
Yeah, I think we're limited as a small school with 220 kids K-8, 100 kids in middle school. You're limited by the staffing, your resources, truly limited. I always think like, wow, if you had double the amount of kids in the middle school, and which, by the way, I do believe has many drawbacks as well.
It does.
100%. Right. So I love the fact that we know every kid and kids don't go between the cracks, and the things that kids will say first about the school is like, my teachers know me inside and out, and all of those other really super important things at that age. But I think we're limited.
Are there any fundamentals that they must choose over the course of the week, whatever time frame you're looking at?
I think it's choice within a structure. They're not going to choose to take Chumash, they're not choosing to do Tefillah.
Right, and that's curious as another
forth,
community
right?
day school person if that is a bit of there's tension around that, because in my experience at a large holistic school, there are certain essential skills that we would want our students to be able to have access to build.
right? So everyone has to take Tanakh, everyone has to take Toshba. But there are a number of our families, and certainly students, where they do not see that as an essential skill, as part of their Jewish learning experience. And so there's tension about where does school come down and say, we actually do believe that this will inform and shape our ultimate goals, right, of becoming caring, confident, passionate, critical thinkers who see the world through Jewish values. And at the same time, not everyone, students for sure, even not all of our families, feel that that is an essential part of that. So for us, there was always this tension of having to basically explain and educate our families of why we do believe that these are valuable skills, and that you may not find certain math skills to be useful. We find that to be valuable, opportunities to build certain kinds of, mind skills, and again, analysis that you wouldn't have otherwise. So as a community school, that was a bit of a
I feel
tension.
like that kind of relates to my pushback against making something that I thought was a thing you did as opposed to a goal. Because I think when you're trying to envision what it means to be an adult Jew who can self-direct and make choices, if you haven't had exposure and been given a certain set of tools, you actually don't have all those choices, right? So there's a piece of education that is about the role models we provide them, what skills that we give them, and the things that they're deeply exposed to that they might not choose, because otherwise they'll never choose them, right? And they still might not choose them, but that's a
can't
little
choose if
different.
you don't even know.
What does
Right.
it mean to be ready?
I said solid.
I had a principal
Like,
once,
everyone's
who's not
welcome.
Jewish, who's like,
We have a word
she talked so much about the role of elementary schools being, and school in general, was actually preparing them to become adults, right? And so what we want them to be as adults, and what we want to equip them to do, is different than what we have them do,
And that's an
in
example
different
of that tension
spaces,
again.
in different stages.
Yeah, like when you were talking, I was thinking like you said, Amazon is like an integrated day school is an absolute nightmare, and I mean it just is, and you feel like, oh my god, I'm actually creating this behavior. But then I think to what you just said, I was like, right, but I need to know when my kids are 25 years old that they can be sitting at somebody's table and make the choice if they want to do it, and if we don't do this, they're not going to even make the choice.
And as adults, right, most research will tell you the last thing you want is for an adult to walk into any space and feel ignorant and unaware, because that's an easy way to distance them, right? I know people who belong to my shul who will say, come, make sure you don't go anywhere else for Shabbat, because I feel so uncomfortable walking in. I don't know where we are in the service. I don't know where and how to navigate the scene.
Yeah, and that's been some adaptation of institution, not school. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right, but if we
institutions
give our
be making a lot more steps to be welcoming and opening and helpful and friendly.
Agreed, and I actually think my shul does a good job of that. But the point is that without some of those foundational skills, that even in a day school that we can make the case are valuable, we don't set up people to be adults who feel underinformed and then therefore foolish in this setting.
So I'm going to push you back to the passionate side of things, meaning what you're pointing to is really that there should be and that there is a different goal, and that we're not always concerned about passion, right? And that sometimes passion and inspiration in the long term come through commitment and requirements and responsibility. In terms of passion, if we're looking at our goal as a school as inspiration and passion and excitement, what are some of the things that we can be doing? What should our policy, what kind of policy should we have? What type of communication would we have? Should we have? What type of interactions, role modeling can we do? And what might be, which is really kind of what you're talking about, some of the things that we do that send messages that that's not really what's of value and importance to us. And we got about 3 more minutes before you're gonna have to share what you heard here with another group.
As much as we want students at the center, I think we still want them to feel that they're part of the community, that they can't just, it's not only about them, it's about them, but there's looking around at what other people are doing. You can't do whatever you want at any given time. You can come into a room and find work. Like, you have to think about the other people as well and learning to balance that.
I mean, I think it's interesting because what's happened here is that, we've sort of focused on all these things that are sort of the counterbalance,
Right.
Rather than the center of, so how do you promote passion, And I think, I actually just want to go back to, from my perspective, and I love project-based learning and service learning, and I do think that connecting project-based learning with what's happening in kids' lives and basing it, identifying their interests and letting them sort of ask questions and ask, and explore areas of interest is really important. And there is a balance because we live in a world in which we have to relate to others. We don't always have choice. We're not always at the center. I think that's what's coming up here, and giving the range of knowledge and tools so that people can make an informed choice is a key piece. But in terms of inspiring passion, getting to where their interests are is really at the heart of it. I don't know if there are other ideas.
Be passionate about it yourself.
Yeah.
If you're excited, no matter what you're teaching, they're going to be excited with you. And I've seen that with topics like LEAP. I come in and I'm really excited about what I'm teaching. They're going to feel that, oh my goodness, what is there about what I want to learn also.
So a practice might be giving teachers space to develop their own interests that they can then bring into the classroom. Right? I mean, that's something.
And show how your Jewish learning, your Jewish living, your Jewish values, they are relevant to your own personal life. Which goes back to your comment on experiential learning. And as authentic as we can make learning experiences, it's real life, people. We're not just doing a simulation here. This is real, right? That creates a fire in you because what we do is real.
Right. Exactly. So, is there anyone, I'm curious, I hear you're doing service learning. In any of the other schools or settings in which you guys are working in, do you see this being brought to life at all?
Service learning meaning choices of different services, am I understanding
No.
volunteering out
With the learning component.
Right, it's really, the learning is at the center and builds into, and then students get involved into projects or volunteering in ways that are based in learning. It's not just helping out or volunteering.
We do philanthropy groups, funding groups, as true authentic ways of embracing values related to stuff out. So we did learning around that. Students in some cases we did some fundraising to raise funds, and then we had a big pool of money that a donor has given that's matching it. And then the students go through an experience of nominating different nonprofits and putting together presentations and basically making a case to their peers, so they then together have to make some decisions about how to distribute funds. And not all organizations get funds. So there's real life decision making and building consensus, which is a valuable skill. We talked about Machloket last night, right? So these all play in, and it's real life. It's not Monopoly.
And how did the students respond?
So,
I've seen this done in a third grade class.
my favorite job
Blown away.
my favorite job in school. They call me the protocol czar sometimes. Like my job is to stop good conversations, and it's horrible. It's like, you know, whether it's a good conversation at a faculty meeting or whether like you're in a Beit Midrash and all the kids are learning and there's chavruta and it's going well and your job, okay, stop, we have to come back together. Exactly. Well, that's my job. So when I get around, once I finish going through the groups, we're going to jigsaw. So I'll just give you another set of numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you can go back, but be ready to share kind of what you discussed.
So students were passionate about that.
Incredibly passionate because it was real. And they could pursue their own interests. I love animals. I believe in social justice issues. I care about the environment. I care about the hungry people in our community. Right? So they each found their own passion to be able to nominate organizations.
Were they able to articulate the Jewish values?
We did a lot of learning around that, right? And I mean, for many of these students in middle school, they've been learning about this for years. But then to actually use that as illustration of real life nonprofits that are focused on this, you could see, right? Now all of a sudden it actually meant something.
Right.
It
Brings
beyond
their
just
experience.
Yes.
Excellent. Any other thoughts, since we probably have one more minute?
I can only say, like, this is a question that plagued me. I was partway to the gender just
I should say, why did you take John?
I was,
oh my gosh,
my role was a kindergarten teacher. And I felt that I just had this view of watching learning become less and less joyful. Children to ethnic classroom. And for me, that's like this big question of what is it? What does joyful learning look like at different stages where it continues to be challenging? I don't really like just rigorous, but also robust and meaningful, but still brings that love of learning. And you know, I don't know what it is, but that component is so important. much as that was about the real world, there's probably all these other hidden pieces of just how much students love to work on a project together, like all the social interaction that happens in that. And and then I just watched kids move into like test and flashcard land and just
you just said it.
joy gets sucked out of it.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't, I don't know how do you
Our factory model of education that we
how do you make learning joyful? Right, that's a huge question. It's so important to this stuff.
It's something that I don't have the total answer, but it's something we certainly talk about. And last year, 2 years ago, we did our mission and values. We weren't really changing the core of the school. We really were just focusing on articulating better who we are and what our mission is, and to learn joyful. It's like one of our 3 statements, and that we also call that was like so important to focus on so that doesn't get lost.
You know, it reminds me as we talk about building resilience in students and how it's often falling by the wayside. And the realities that we need to prepare our students for the academic world. Like I keep saying, colleges, but only in universities, and we should be able to change some of how they do things that could trickle down into high school, into middle school, and down below. But the fact is that you have to be resilient. There are certain skills we have to teach them. We have to teach them to take tests. We have to teach them certain vocabulary, flashcard skills. Those are still realities that I think we would be fooling ourselves to say that tomorrow we'll go back to all our schools and we can just make them all go away. So how do you still, just like we're building resilience in children for other circumstances in their life, that we still capture those joyful moments?
You say flashcards are boring because they teach resilience to do boring things like flashcards.
I'm saying that's not what you're saying. I'm saying that we have certain realities that we have to prepare our students for as they move toward high school. Right? Those are structures that have yet to change. And there's a trickle down. There are reports that I have to do for my employer that are less than joyful. And ultimately, it's my responsibility to find the co-op, to push through the things that I don't enjoy, and it's also my opportunity to find how to wrap my toe, look at the good in so many things around me, even when I'm not noticing it. And so I'm not a fan of flashcards or Quizlet, but they are realities that our students also find without tools.
Giving opportunities for discovery, even at a higher level, that's something that both intellectually is a place where joy can be found, and I think maybe thinking that through is one.
So I both love and hate feeling like I wish I was part of every single one of these groups. So 1 is going to be all the way in the back over there. 2, 3 right over here. 4, and then 5 at the end. Sorry, everyone. Okay, so in 5 or 6 minutes, maybe everyone could just spend a minute capturing what the goal was that they were talking about in their group, and kind of what the conversation was about, some of the areas that they saw in which those values can be manifested. I'll start.
So our topic was incorporating God and students' relationship with God into education and making it a part of the environment. And automatically the first idea that was suggested was tefillah, as an element of the day that we build into the day that sends a message that we should be in a relationship with God. And we talked about whether, by definition, including tefillah in the day encourages people to have a relationship with God, or sometimes it can actually work in some ways against us. And we talked about, I particularly spoke about the idea of midot education and weaving that into the fabric of the school experience, because midot can be a reflection of the relationship that we have with the world and our expression of God as part of our identity and what God wants of us. And we ended with making choices about all parts of the curriculum, such that students are having conversations about God and what God wants from us, and really being thoughtful about what specific parts of the Jewish canon we are going to introduce, even just in regular tech study classes, so that those conversations about can take place.
And then one other question that arose just about multiple avenues and paths and the recognition that people connect differently, and to what degree we foster that and enable that in schools, and to what degree we create a path and either on the path or not.
Sure, so we spoke about engaging students as leaders and active members of a global community. And I talked about that a lot of schools do those two things separately. Like they create leadership opportunities to give students experience in being leaders, either through clubs or activities, or empowering them to make decisions about their own education, or in political venues, for example, giving students a voice and agency. And then separately from that, exposing groups of students to the broader community, whether it be through service opportunities or athletics or other sort of engagement and interaction, and hoping that ultimately when students leave, they'll be able to put it together and be able to exercise that passion and that voice in the context of a broader world. We brought up Israel as a concept that could either be a factor that promotes that or detracts from it when too much politics gets involved and it's difficult for students to find that voice. The other thing that came up is just the pressure from the college world, the business world, the notion that you have a certain set destination at the end of your experience, which could detract from trying to promote a lot of these more experiential, leadership-oriented things.
We discussed the role of community, both the community of the school. How do 7th graders, for example, understand that they're individual learners, and I have this math aptitude, and you have a different math aptitude, and the school programs towards those two aptitudes, and we're in the same class, yet in 2 different reading groups, and 2 different academic groups, because the fact is, academically, our students sometimes need a different menu. And that does not contradict the sense of community, that you're a citizen of the class, you're a citizen of the school. There are social rights and responsibilities. And we felt that students can assimilate the fact that being in a community means that there's a social community, there's an academic community, and you kind of get what you need academically, and the social norms remain the same for everybody. The second place that the discussion went related to community was that could the school be a hub for the community in general?
As we approach 11 o'clock, make sure
The discussion revolved around synagogues program. Should the school in fact program in such a way to make the rich resources of the teachers and the school's resources available to the community? Does it create a tension, for example, when a school brings in a speaker on Shabbat and everybody comes to that school program instead of going to their shul? Does it diminish from the current synagogue programming where the school makes a Shabbat speaker, thus taking away either from the shul speaker, because there's not a coordinated calendar for every single event? And should the school be part of what a synagogue does in terms of programming for community? Should a school also make that programming available to its constituents and the larger community, so that the school becomes a hub for community activity? Those are the 2 dimensions that we saw the school community question.
I would say our conversation was like a little, it meandered quite a bit. I'm going to try to, in a really interesting and vibrant way, but we sort of started with this question of putting students at the center as a piece of a vision of students finding their passion within their learning and their Jewish learning. Which led us to a conversation about this tension between what are the tools that a child needs to be an adult who can make all those choices and find their passion versus allowing those choices, sort of putting a student in a position to be making those choices without kind of an arsenal of exposure and tools and skills. And then I think we sort of morphed to just like, what are the what are the components that really make learning joyful and passion-based at all ages? And where does project-based learning fit into that, and where does just general real-life application and social emotional, and just sort of like dissecting that a little bit. That's kind of where we went.
My question.